Welcome to A Lovely Wallpaper, a podcast exploring an underappreciated way of appreciating poetry by committing it to memory. To know a poem by heart means having a worry stone, a provocation, a comfort, a quick exit, always close at hand. Lose yourself in a poem, gain a world with its mastery.
The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost, that a loss is no disaster.
In this episode, I'm bringing you a live recording from the 62nd Annual Southern California Renaissance Faire, where I was able to drum up a falconer and a noblewoman who will help me present an eagle for an emperor. This poem is taken from the 1486 Book of St. Albans, a manuscript about falconry which was likely written by Dame Juliana Berners, a Benedictine prioress from 15th century England. Berners, alongside Marjorie Kempe and Julian of Norwich, is considered one of the earliest female authors in the English language. Not a lot is known about Berners, but she was also the very first person to write a book on angling, and she was sensitive to environmental stewardship long ahead of her time. The poem An Eagle for an Emperor is basically a hierarchy of birds set alongside a hierarchy of feudal society. Medieval sumptuary laws did not just govern how fancy your outfit could be, but also what sort of bird you could hunt with. Anyhow, a list poem like this seemed like a nice fit for the Renaissance Fair just because of the multitudes you see there, which are, thank goodness, not limited by any puritanical mandates on self-presentation. I like the Renaissance Fair primarily because LA can be a little light on people watching, and the event delivers spectacularly, with fairies and monks and knights and plague doctors, and every interpretation of the witch-wench continuum you can imagine. Costuming runs a gamut. The fiercely historical and the comically ahistorical can both be obnoxious and delightful in turns. I am here on a regular weekend, but some recent theme weekends have included pirates, cottagecore, and steampunk. I spent the day wandering, and I found my true history nuts at the Queen's Court, a stage that is carpeted and set with a banquet table and an all-ages ensemble cast dressed in glittering Elizabethan garb. This is where I found Robert Shallow, holding a beautiful white feathered creature of the night. If the Renaissance Fair is about carnival and reversals, well, Robert Shallow and his bird, Lady Illuria, overturned a lot of my preconceptions about owls, at least. Well, I'm here today with a master falconer whose name is
Robert Shallow.
Nice to meet you, Robert. Tell me a little bit about your bird.
Well, she is but only 4 winters old. She's quite young. She's what I call a plague baby. And so she's learning how to socialize right now. But I call her the Lady Illuria Aguien.
After?
Oh, it's just an old Scottish name.
Wonderful.
But it sounded good to her, so that's what she is now.
Now, I did a little bit of research about falconry before coming here, and on the California Hawking Association website, it said hunting is a difference between being a falconer and a pet keeper.
This is true.
Pet keeper to me sounds like something from the Shakespearean insult generator. Like you bawdy, foul-brained pet keeper.
Well, I think in this instance what they're referring to is that the birds of prey, raptors specifically, they are not domesticated. We don't domesticate them. They are our hunting companions. And that is what they're referring to when they reference between the idea of having a pet or having a hunting companion, because that's truly what they are. We revere them very high. We bond with them in a different way than you would, say, a dog or a cat. They don't think of us in loving loyalty terms. They think of us as a food source. They think of us as tools, really, to help them gain in the hunt. That's our job. We flush out the game that they hunt.
And do you hunt with Lady Aloria?
Oh, no, not with an owl, no. Owls can be very difficult for a falconer to train. They're not very smart. I know they come with the idea...
That is not my understanding.
But the problem with them is they have a, it's a lack of attention span, really, is what it is. So it does make it difficult to train them and to focus them. But a hawk or a falcon, they're extremely intelligent, and they follow suit with lines of training for hunt. So as a falconer, we strive to use our hawks and our falcons, if you will, to teach them better, stronger hunting skills so that they will be better and stronger at what they do. Most falconers will release their birds after a few years of working with them into the wild to continue on.
And is that where Lady Aloria is bound to? Will she be released?
She will be with me for all her days. She is captive bred, and she was literally made for me. So she will become part of our education that we do with young students.
Have you found other birds in the wild?
As a falconer, we do, as part of our training, we learn how to trap certain birds of prey. We are allowed to do so through our licensing. So we do trap them. We tend to research the bird. We will look into their nests, and as they lay 4 eggs, we will observe those eggs. And oftentimes we'll choose a bird that is probably not going to survive past its first year. We can kind of tell which ones are going to do that. And that's the bird we're going to watch. That's the bird we're going to attempt to trap, because that's the challenge. The challenge is to take that bird and teach it better hunting skills. Now, it doesn't always work. Sometimes we'll trap a bird, and within a few days or even a week's time, we understand that bird does not want to be with us. So off it goes, back out into the wild. But if they are amenable to our training, then we are happy to push them and give them good skills. One of my Harris hawks who's around here somewhere, Lady Margaret, she is one of the best hunters I've ever trained. She is currently 29 years of age, and she is capable of taking 7 rabbits in only 1 hour's time. So, but she again is also a captive bred bird. So again, with the captive breds, we're not in this state allowed to just release them, that kind of thing. So that is essentially what they're talking about between pets and hunting companions.
So you have a great sense of your different birds' personalities then.
Oh, I have to. If I don't learn all of their personalities, how can I train them properly? So yes, I dive deep into their psychology, each one of them, and they're all different. They all are very, very different in their ways of doing things. So yeah.
Do you feel that you personify them, or you have a different rubric of like hawk personalities, falcon personalities?
I think if I'm understanding you correctly, I tend to change my personality, my way to match each of their personalities when I come in contact with them. So each day I must deal with each one. So every time I go to one bird's mew or chamber, I will change my persona in order to meet theirs, because that's a better relationship and a better situation for both of us. And that's simply just to pick them up and maneuver them, check their equipment, put them out in the weather, as we call it, weathering, so that they might bathe if they wish to. Birds of prey are very lazy. They really very much are.
That wasn't a personality trait I was expecting. I was imagining rebellion.
Well, some of them are, yes, sure, but they're also extremely lazy. You see a bird up on in a tree anywhere, just sitting there. You must understand, most of the birds of prey are gorgers. They don't hunt that often as we think they do, not every day. So it's exhausting flying through the air and trying to capture a rabbit or something. It's very exhausting for them. So if they can find something that's dead on the road, they'll go for that too.
Oh, yeah, when I look at the size of Lady Margaret and think about her picking up a rabbit, it's kind of shocking.
They don't actually pick them up. What they will do is they will grab hold of, they're very good at this, they grab hold of the head and the hind of the rabbit to immobilize it. And then they hold it there. And at that moment, they will start squeezing the rabbit. They will eventually kill it. And they will eat as much, in the wild, they will eat as much of it as they can right there. and then they will leave the rest for another animal. But with a falconer, we've trained them so that when they go down on a rabbit, we will assist them. We run to their aid. They are looking for us. And as soon as I arrive, I will put one hand on the rabbit's body and hold it down, while with the opposite hand, toss food to the side that she is used to having, because it is far easier for her to capture that food that's already dead and prepared for her than it is to kill that rabbit. So I will then take the rabbit, put the rabbit in my bag, and we will look at the rabbit later. If the rabbit is well, then we might release it back into the field. Now the rabbit has learned, oh, when this hawk comes in, I must run away. So now we're teaching our hawk to hunt better that rabbit that knows it, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
That does make sense.
So it can get quite complicated in the hunting field, but essentially, it comes down to just, she and I in the hunting field, making it happen.
Do you ever make rabbit stew?
Yes.
All right, good.
But honestly, most of the captures that we do go to feed the other birds as well that aren't in the hunting field, such as the owls.
Have you ever had a funny bird?
How do you mean funny? Goofy kind of thing?
Yeah.
I suppose I would look at it as that such, but most people wouldn't, only because I know how they work, what motivates them, and when they do silly things. I mean, for instance, a great horned owl running across your floor is quite hysterical to watch, and so that's a thing. But no, not terribly. I mean, bathing is hysterical. When they bathe, it is quite funny to watch. They dip their bottoms in the water. They do. They bounce and dip their water, and then sometimes they'll roll in there, and this barn owl here, I put water in front of her, and she's like a fish. She's right in, and so that can be kind of funny and enjoyable. But
Dust baths? Do rafters do dust baths?
the burrowing owls do a little bit of that, so there are a few that will do that kind of thing. But you just want to take me down, don't you? That's a look in that face. So,
We have a small Viking here.
yes, we do. We have a very small Viking who wants to chop my knees off.
The great horned owl who has run across the floor. Are you talking about this other owl right here?
So I've had him for a very long time. He is 20 and 8. That's Sir Robert the Bruce.
The what?
Sir Robert the Bruce.
The Bruce. Okay.
Yes, that's his name. And he is, as I say, he's 20 and 8 years of age. So I had him when he was just a ball of fluff. Unfortunately, he was considered non-releasable. There's a time in an owl's life when they need to imprint on other owls, and that did not happen with him. So he doesn't exactly know, in layman's terms, he doesn't know how to be an owl. So he doesn't hunt. He wouldn't hunt. He wouldn't survive in the wild. So he must live with us for the rest of the days. But he provides not only education, but he also provides, for a falconer, owls are important in the sense of our falcons. We use them to draw crows and blackbirds into our hunting field because they want to frighten the owl away. So while they're doing that, from behind a tree where we've hidden, we release the falcon to hunt them. So oftentimes falconers will use owls. Great horned owls are very good at it because of their size. And they are, in a sense, bait, if you will.
So bait for you said the crows and the
Yes,
mockingbird?
Crows,
So
blackbirds, all the kind. They don't like...
they want to scare the owls away because the owls are competitors for their prey, or?
They hunt them at night. So they want to frighten them away before night falls. And so they'll just scream at the owl, circle high above, and while they're doing that, falcons hunt other birds in flight. So we send our falcons up to hunt them.
Wow. So
Yes.
which of the birds that you work with listen to voice commands? Is that the way you communicate with them? Or?
In some ways, most of it's visual. Birds of prey are 90% of everything they do is through their sight. So it's said that they can see about 1.5 miles away to spot their prey. So we use a lot of visual kinds of commands for them, if you will. However, the Harris hawks that I fly, they are known to be able to understand a limited amount of words and sounds, mayhap about 4 words, I would say. I do know this. I have hunted 4 of these birds in what's called a cast. And you can call them by name one at a time to come in if you are doing the proper training. So yes, they can understand a little bit of that.
So the owls are not the smartest, but are hawks the most intelligent of the birds you work with?
I believe that falcons are the most intelligent. When I watch them fly, when I watch them hunt, they look as if they sometimes play with their prey. Hawks, they're down to business. Let us kill them. But falcons will sometimes play with their prey before they do that, and that is a sign of intelligence. So, in my opinion, it's the falcons that are the smartest. Then I would go to the hawks at that point. Owls, they're beautiful, and they're amazing to work with and to wonder about, but honestly, they are not very smart.
How did they come to be this symbol of wisdom, do you think?
Old wives' tales, and there's a number of different old concepts that you can cite, but I don't honestly know. There is a old story about nobles from medieval and the Renaissance era, and the nobles are considered to be the most wise of all peoples in the land. And if you notice in their paintings, they have these great bulbous eyes. And this was a common disease that was in the noble houses that they had. And there are some people that believe that because of the size of the eyes, they believe that was a sign of wisdom. So with the idea of that, you have large eyes, and an owl for the most part, they must be wise, but they're not. That's just one story.
What about the goshawk? The goshawk is the bird that leads Wart to find Merlin in the Forest Sauvage in the Once and Future King or in Arthurian legend. Do you work with goshawks? Is that still a type of bird?
Yes, you can. As a general falconer or a master falconer, you are allowed to have it. But they can be a little more challenging. They're very much aggressive compared to some of the birds that you're seeing here. But they are a joy, and they are beautiful to watch. So yes, they are excellent hunters.
I get this from the name. Do they take down geese? Is that why they're called that?
With a goshawk, you have a lot of options with your hunting. You can go after the larger birds in flight. You can do it. I have not done it, but I have seen some falconers do it. But typically with hawks, any hawk, you will stick to ground prey. Yes. Or birds that don't fly well.
Right, okay. Geese are certainly prepared to migrate for, our continent. So.
Bit of an easy target.
Okay. Okay, well, talk to me for a second about this poem that I brought along from a 1486 falconry manual, the Book of St. Albans. There is a hierarchy of the different birds for different, feudal positions. And I'm curious to hear your take on it, because I guess owls do not factor into this, but I'll read it to you. A Gyrfalcon for a king, a Peregrine for a prince, a Saker for a knight, a Merlin for a lady, a Goshawk for a yeoman, a Sparrowhawk for a priest, a Musket for a holy water clerk, a Kestrel for a knave.
Yes. Those are all quite correct. That is how they viewed them. You must understand that there are 3 noble creatures. The horse, raptors, birds of prey, and the hound. These are all considered noble creatures. And then they are broken down to the stations they're in. Now, you could have a bird that is not within your station, but you would pay a sumptuary tax for it. For instance, you mentioned the Gyrfalcon for a king. It is said that a Gyrfalcon, the largest of all falcons, is the most coveted and worth a king's ransom. The reason for that, there's an old story of, in what now is called Germany, they used to have a lot of almost city-states where they had many kings and princes and all different kinds. There is a story where a king's child, a son, the first son, was kidnapped and taken and held ransom. And the ransom was the Gyrfalcons of the king. The king said, "No, I will make another child." And the people who obtained the young boy said, "Oh, we understand. You don't think we're serious about this." So they did send the boy's ring attached to its finger to the king. And the king still said again, "No, I will make another." This is how valuable these birds were. And from that point, they even wrote back and said, "Oh, we're asking too much. We will only ask for one of your 7 Gyrfalcons." Again, the king refused. So that is where the Gyrfalcon, worth the king's ransom, does come from. So yes, the list is quite true and was looked upon as, I wouldn't say law, but acceptable social parameters for the period, yes. For instance, we are here in the presence of Her Majesty. She is an avid hunter. She understands these animals being of noble birth. Now, she is of a higher station than anyone here, but yet, if I am holding a bird of prey, from time to time, she will pay reverence to me, well, to the bird. And that's simply a light bowing, nothing more, but it is a courtesy, an acknowledgement of how we revere nature and the animals within it that we revere, that we love. So, yes.
Lovely. Well, on that note, thank you very much.
A pleasure.
Thank you, Lady Alora.
A pleasure.
So, before I parted ways with Robert Shallow, a Shakespearean namesake, he handed me a business card with his real name, which is apparently Talon Knight. He is head of the 501c3 educational organization, the Falcon's Court. I have not been able to get in touch with him since our interview, but luckily I was able to catch up with Queen's Court Director Terri Casey, who was willing to read the poem for me. Elizabeth Hardwicke Talbot, Countess of Shrewsbury, is her character name, not to be confused with that 20th century New York City literary royalty, Elizabeth Hardwicke, author of Sleepless Nights, founding editor of the New York Review of Books, wife of Robert Lowell, who is always making Casey's character more complicated to Google. This one, as Casey will explain to me, was a different sort of icon and it girl. Here's a brief conversation with the longtime director of the Queen's Court before she reads our poem today. So welcome, Elizabeth. What should I call you?
You may call me, I don't know. My lady is generally the way I'm referred to.
My lady. Okay, thank you. I wanted to know a little bit about how long you've been involved with the Renaissance Fair and the Queen's Court.
I have been at the Renaissance Fair nigh on 40 years. And I've been with the Queen's Court for about 30 of that. The Countess of Shrewsbury was born a yeoman's daughter, fairly low on the pecking order. And she first married when she was 16 to a neighbor, and he died of what they call the bloody sickness. We don't have any idea what that actually means. She then went into service to Francis Brandon, and there she paired with William Cavendish, whose brother was the principal secretary, Thomas Wolsey, Colonel Wolsey, sorry. And they got married. He was a good 20 years older than she was. They got married and had 6 kids, and he passed on. She then married a fellow by the name of William St. Lo, who was the first captain of the Queen's Guard. And when he died, he married the Earl of Shrewsbury. In this period, you did not marry for love. It was literally a civil contract. Carry lands with lands and fortunes with fortunes and families with families.
All right. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. If you would please go ahead and read to me the poem An Eagle for an Emperor from the Book of St. Albans.
All right. An eagle for an emperor, a Gyrfalcon for a king, a Peregrine for a prince, a Staker for a knight, a Merlin for a lady, a Goshawk for a yeoman, a Sparrowhawk for a priest, a Musket for a holy water clerk, a Kestrel for a knave.
All right. Thank you so much, Terri, also known as the Countess of Shrewsbury. I really enjoyed talking with you today. It is hard to know if Dame Juliana Berners wrote the piece or just recorded it, much less whether she meant the text as a poem or just as a handy list of social rules. You know, in case you were a holy water clerk on the fence about whether to keep an eagle or not. In any case, I like it for its sound, for the fact that it was probably meant as a mnemonic, and I like to imagine every single person at the Ren Fair with a role-appropriate bird added to their costume. So here's our poem. It is only 9 lines, so we'll go in 3s.
An eagle for an emperor, a Gyrfalcon for a king, a Peregrine for a prince. An eagle for an emperor, a Gyrfalcon for a king, a Peregrine for a prince.
The word Gyrfalcon fascinates me here because of Yeats's poem, The Second Coming. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Hearing the proximity of the gyre gear to the word falcon, knowing that they join to make something specific and majestic, opened up new worlds in this poem for me. The idea that the falconer is drawn not just into the turmoil of the outside world, but into the turmoil of his own falconness. I looked up the origin of the name, and it sounds like the root is disputed. The gear maybe means sacred, maybe greedy, not a vortex like the gyre, apparently. Though I will forever see it gyrating down a heat column. Anyway, Gyrfalcons are snowy white, large, and would be captured in Scandinavia and sold to European kings. It is now the national bird of Iceland.
A faker for a knight, a Merlin for a lady, a Goshawk for a yeoman. A faker for a knight, a Merlin for a lady, a Goshawk for a yeoman.
A saker is yet another type of large falcon. At the risk of reading too much into it, or maybe just at the gain of a good mnemonic, I love the way that the word evoking seeker, evoking one who slakes their thirst and jousts for the sake of a lady, goes so well with the tropes of a questing knight. A Merlin is a small falcon, and this is where we pivot from falcons to hawks.
A Sparrowhawk for a priest, a Musket for a holy water clerk, a Kestrel for a knave. A Sparrowhawk for a priest, a Musket for a holy water clerk, a Kestrel for a knave.
So the Sparrowhawk is sparrow-eating sized, just as the Yeoman's Goshawk is goose-eating sized. A Musket is a male Sparrowhawk, and maybe that is all the wiki research about birds I'll throw your way. In this poem, I think knave just means servant as opposed to a cheat, like the word evolved to mean. But between the alliteration and the insult-adjacent word, I like that the list goes out with a bang. One last time.
An eagle for an emperor, a Gyrfalcon for a king, a Peregrine for a prince, a faker for a knight, a Merlin for a lady, a Goshawk for a yeoman, a Sparrowhawk for a priest, a Musket for a holy water clerk, a Kestrel for a knave.
And that was our poem. Thanks to Robert Shallow, or Talon Knight, and Elizabeth Hardwick, Countess of Shrewsbury. I hope it unfolded for you in a way which made you glad to make it your own. And I hope you can hold on to it. Review it on paper or let it live more like a song in your memory. Thank you to Susie Boyd for lending me this podcast's title, to GW Sock and the X for use of their song, The Art of Losing, which borrows the words of Elizabeth Bishop. And thank you to my sound engineer, Alex.
No disaster. Something every day, except the fluster.